the Talk of Life talk show with Elma. Tonight, I do not have Kimberly. I don't have Linda. I don't even have Jerome. But I do have the one and only Dr. Larry Kemp with me tonight. I know Larry don't like to be called doctor, but on my show, he's a doctor, okay? And we have our special guest, which Larry's going to do that. I'm just going to open up tonight because this is our first time having Talk Business with Larry. This is a new segment that's on the show, and we're excited about this. And I'm going to do our scripture. Sit down. Because Kimberly, can't nobody do it like you. Okay, so our scripture for this show is finish what you start. That means what it says. Philippians 1 and 6. This is just our shorter version of that. So whatever you start, finish it. Don't be a procrastinator. Then I learned through the years that you just can't be the person who never gives up. I'm one of those people. And the person that's pictured on here looks like my son, which it is. And he is one that never, ever give up. So I am so excited to have our new segment tonight with Dr. Larry Kemp. Give it up. All right, so this time I'm going to turn this show over to the one and only Dr. Larry Kemp with Talk Business with Larry.
Hey. All right.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Elma, for allowing me to have this segment on the first Monday of every month. This is our first Monday, and I could think of nobody better to invite than Rickie Clark. Not only is a friend, a brother, he's a change agent in this community. He does things behind the scenes. Let me tell you a little about Rickie. He's a native of Chicago, a graduate of Jarvis Christian College. The unique thing about him being a graduate of Jarvis, I think for the last 30, how many years, Rickie?
32 years.
32 years. He has taken a student from the Fort Worth area to Jarvis, to attend Jarvis on a scholarship, grant, something. And so he's taking a student every year for the last 32 years back to his alma mater to attend Jarvis. That's amazing.
Just went yesterday.
He's a father. He's a grandfather. He's a friend. He's active in his community. And the foremost thing about Rickie, he's an educational consultant. He's an author. 2 profound books, What My Daddy Should Have Told Me, and Kindergarten to 12th Grade equal 13 Years a Slave. Profound books written by Rickie. He speaks all over the country, all over the nation about the ills of so-called at-risk youth and employing them in our community to be better. So, Rickie, you got anything to say?
Oh, so let me start by saying thank you all for having me. Larry told me about it. I've been excited, had a chance to meet you at the Blank Space for one of their functions. I think it was for the Tubman Gallery, Tubman Museum. So thank you for having me. Larry's been my friend since day one. You know how people always say you got your day ones? This is one of my day ones. Not a day two. We've been like this. You would think that I've been knowing him all my life. But I just met him when I moved to Fort Worth. And I've seen what Larry do, and Larry knows the work that I've been doing. And he's been very helpful. He's speaking of it like, well, Rickie been sending people, but I will stop by his place. He loads the kids' stuff up with washing powder, whatever they need. He's still asking me, Larry, I got it. So thank you for having me, bro.
Thank you. Rickie is a unique individual in our community. I remember when Rickie first hit the scene in Fort Worth after Jarvis. He had his own building.
Yeah.
He was working with youth over there in South 6 area on Stuck Stall Cup.
Yeah.
Rickie was a minister. He barely missed being a city councilman by a handful of votes.
That's right.
But I think Rickie found his passion. Rickie runs a program that was initiated by Barack Obama called My Brother's Keeper, MBK. Oh, wow. And Rick, tell me about how it's not in every major city, it's just in some, it's not even in Dallas, I don't think?
That's not one in Dallas. So MBK is an initiative started by Barack Obama in 2014 after Trayvon Martin was killed, when Barack made the comment, Trayvon could have been my son. Mm-hmm. And he started a program called My Brother's Keeper. And this program is designed to work with at-risk youth, or better yet, to work with young people. And they have MBK programs all over the country. And in 2016, when he was leaving the White House, he invited all innovative programs throughout the country to come to the White House, and we were selected as one of those groups. Oh, wow. And what's unique about our MBK program is, there's programs all over. What's different about ours is that we work with young people, and we're creating fraternities in high school. And the reason why we're trying to create fraternities in high school and middle school, because at the White House we found out that 50% of men of color drop out of high school. 65% drop out of college after 2 years. But 78% graduated if they join a fraternity or play a sport. Let me repeat that. 50% of people of 50% of men of color drop out of high school. 65% drop out of college after 2 years. But 78% graduate, they join a fraternity or play a sport.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Rickie, why is that? I'm in a fraternity, you're in a fraternity.
I'm in the fraternity. I'm an alpha. The only real
fraternity
is Alpha.
Alpha.
Wow, did y'all hear that?
And I'm voting for my sister. Right.
Wow.
So anyway,
Good.
yeah, so I'm a part of the fraternity, and what it did for me, I thought I would come back and teach our children. I'm from the south side of Chicago. I'm the only one in my family to graduate from high school. Less known having a college degree.
That's good.
I'm not bragging, it's the testimony.
But
not only
good.
that,
Tell it.
I met my son before I met my daddy. Let me repeat that. I said I met my son before I met my daddy. Right, and so when I went off to school, my whole life changed. I learned about brotherhood, learned about religion, learned about several things, and what for me, I was able to bring it back to the community. And so we started these fraternities in high school, and we say, what is MBK? My brother's keeper. When was it found? 2014. By who? Barack Obama. For what? To help young men of color transition from one life stage to another. We meet in circles because we all leaders. We stand in deformation because we got each other's back. We stand from the shorter to the tall to show evolution from boys to men. We teach a massive dose of African history, Mexican history, and Latino history.
Let me say this. Rickie is probably the foremost person that I've ever met. I've been in classes at Harvard and Duke and Booth College in Chicago. But when it comes to African history, I don't think anybody can touch Rickie Clark. He can talk about the sphinxes and the pyramids and how they relate in medicine. He talks about the African history going back thousands of years, how we had a part and we were leaders and forerunners in almost everything.
And that's what I share with the young people. I impart that liberating information. I think it's only when you begin your history in a state of freedom that you come to properly understand your role. All Africans in America begin our history in 1619. They never solve our people's problem. Nobody begins their history in slavery.
Right.
Okay, question, Rick. What are the main goals and objectives of the MBA program, and how does it aim to impact the community?
So our main goals, we have 4 pillars. That's attendance, behavior, academics, and community involvement. So what we do inside the school, in order to be a chapter, you have to have 12 or more students. We go to the school, we meet with them on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, we provide lunch. He pays for it sometimes. We provide lunch. We have speakers come in, and we impart this liberating information, meaning the same thing he's talking about right there. We do it at each one of the schools. And when we get in there and do that, we start with what they have and build on what they know. Right? So people always like, Rickie, you work with the good kids. Well, really, you don't work with the good kids. We work with the kids who want to be good.
There you go. What schools do you go to?
I'm in every high school. We in every high school.
Wow.
Let me ask you a question, Rick. Why hasn't this taken on in Dallas and other large metropolitan cities?
Well, as you know, there's a lot of talk about this DEI and things like that, talking about the culture and things like that. And so that's one of the things that we don't run from. So we talk about the culture. Some other cities, they don't like you talking about culture, about history and things like that. They talk about equity and things of that nature. But it's what strengthens us. You have to keep in mind, if I know my history and you know your history and I know your history and you know your history, and only way we can be equal if we know each other about each other. Right? So if I don't know the Asian information, they don't know my information. We can't be equal. If we can't be equal, we can't move. So I think history is important. If you don't know what was, you can't know what is. And if you don't know what is, you ill prepared for that to come. So wise people study history. And I believe in some of those cities, the reason why we're not doing that is because they don't want us to know our history, because once you know your history, you become empowered. But the sad part about it, you empowering everybody. Black history is world history. It's just the part that's left out.
Rick, let me ask you a question. I remember when you were doing other things in the community associated with boys, and I remember when MBK, and I really was attracted to it because I was that kid. I was a kid. Why do you think you hadn't gotten the community support?
I would say that I do have the community support. What I haven't gotten is the people that lead the community support. And my reason for saying that, and you all, I'm saying this unapologetically when I speak. Because I serve God, not man. Unapologetically, this is an I statement. I believe that the reason why most of the men, I didn't say women, most of the men don't speak up about what needs to be done, because when we speak up, they come and take your job, they come and take your contract, they come and take, so you have an opportunity to do that. So a lot of folks are scared to say it. So I'm not scared to say it, right? It motivates me, it's encouraging, it changed my life.
Right.
So I'm not going to stop saying it. I believe that a lot of those people are scared to do that. They get in these certain positions, and then they forget who put them in there. If the midgets put you in office, then you support the midgets.
Right.
If the people put you in office, support the people.
Right, right.
And I don't think that's being done, so we get in there and we start playing politics with people's lives.
Right.
These are people's lives that involve young folks, and you know what works. It amazes me. This is 2024, and you tell me I can't teach the kids African history in the school. You mean to tell me you got folks in there telling us what books can be in and what books can be out? Who tells you what you can? How dare you tell me what I can read? But guess what? I'm talking to you on this phone, but in our schools, the libraries are not even being utilized. They have books in there that don't have any books in there that talk about us. There's a question I ask everywhere I go. Can you name a book from kindergarten to 12th grade that's for quiet reading and speak positive about people of color?
There's not one.
There's not one. It wasn't when I was in school. There's not one now. And then you talk about me talking about our history. Mm-hmm. When you start teaching our kids about the fact that it was our ancestors who taught Plato, Pythagoras, and Socrates. Mm-hmm. Let me ask a question to the audience. I often ask that question. How many digits in the world? Anybody?
How many what?
Digits in the world. Digits.
Digits.
Yeah, how many digits in the world? I'll be quiet. I'll wait. Anybody?
I want you to tell us.
You know how many digits. I didn't say how many numbers. There's only 9 digits in the world. Not 10, because 0 is not a digit or a number. There are only 9 digits in the world. Can I ask a simple question? Say, go on and ask a question.
Don't ask the question.
Where them 9 numbers come from? You told me that 12 inches equals a foot. Well, who foot? Mine don't equal 12 inches. Right? So when you think about that, then I would ask, well, the first style of writing, they said is hieroglyphics, right? Well, the first style of writing is hieroglyphics. Who read it and who wrote it? Can I get even deeper than that? Say, go on, get deep.
Go get deep.
So that's a nice shirt he got on. That's red, that's orange, that's blue, that's purple. But where do colors come from? We taught the world didn't teach us. Africa is the only continent that's rooted to the core of the earth. Yeah. That's right. Well, there's only 34 natural resources, 28 of them in Africa. So the world needs Africa. Africa only, but we never talk about it. We never talk about that.
You're right about
So
that.
if you start,
Also, our Bible reads, we're all created equal.
that's right. I'm glad your Bible read that, but I'm going beyond that. Before there was a Bible, there were numbers. Before there was a Bible, there was things. Well, let me give you this, sir. Even when you think about that hieroglyphics, the Greeks call it hieroglyphics. It's really called metuneta. And metuneta means the writing of the gods. They thought we were gods. So we the one that taught the world medicine. The first doctor is them Hotep. We're the ones that put the pyramid in the center of the earth. 48 stories high, 755 feet wide, taking 2,300,000 stones to build. Each stone weighing 3 tons or more. It's in the center of the earth. So that means that whoever put that in had to know geography, had to know astrology, and had to know that the sun shines in the middle every 50,000 years, and had to be here 50,000 years and know that.
Right.
So man is over 400,000 years old. And what man was that? It was a human. He was a black man. Because did you know, you talked about this fact, even when we talk about Africa, did you all know what's the original name of Africa? You ready? The original name of Africa is Al-Kibalan, and it literally means Garden of Eden or Mother of Mankind. And and I forgot to tell you, you can Google anything I say.
Rick, why? Okay, let me question. Okay,
Thank you.
can you share a success story or a significant milestone achieved by your MBK program that you're particularly proud of? I can do one. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, Rickie gave me a call and said, I need some help. And he said, these boys need something. All of them had 4.5, 4.6. They didn't even have cell phones. I said, well, what did they need? He said, everything. So I remember going to Walmart and getting 2 or 3 baskets and just filling it up with ink pens, writing pads, underwear, socks, everything.
Those are boys off to college. You did
But they graduated now. And now they're making an impact in the community.
Good.
So you know, it's about when you plant a seed, you don't know how
Yeah.
that seed's going to bloom.
That's right.
And so that's why I'm always quick to try to give back to MBK or any other organization in this community, because you never know who you impact, because I had people impact me.
That's true.
And watching what Rickie does I can't do what Rickie does. I can't do what he does because it's amazing. He has a lot of walls to fight. down and barriers to get over, but he's doing it for one reason and one reason only. That's for the young men and young people in this community.
He asked for some experiences. So y'all familiar with the Ravens, right? Tylen Wallace. He plays for the Ravens. He's a receiver. He went through my brother's keeper.
Okay.
Right? You got what's his name? Ramos. Marquise Ramos. He had a chance to work on the campaign for Kamala Harris when she was running for president. Did you hear that, Bob? Now, when she was running for president, and she didn't win, but he had a chance to go. These are kind of the people that we work with. Young people who have gone to college, graduated, and come back. And when they come back and work for us, we pay them $30 an hour. So when they come back and work, and we've been doing this now for, like I said, going on 9 years, these kids have graduated. I'll tell you a milestone. It was MBK that brought Magic Johnson in. Y'all know that Magic Johnson came to Fort Worth.
Yeah.
If y'all don't know.
4 years ago.
About 4 years ago, Magic Johnson came to Fort Worth. We held it down at the Hilton. It was so many people, the fire marshal almost had to close the place down. That was us that brought them there. We have 50 young men, so everybody that participates in our program, when they graduate, we buy them brand new customized suits. If they go to Joseph A. Banks, they get to pick out their suit, the lining in the suit, the name in the suit, the shoe, the shirt, the tie, everything but the underwear. And bow ties, and I'm excited about it. Well, I'm really excited that now we have MBK and MSK. So now we have my sister's keeper and my brother's keeper.
Good.
So yes, we still doing it, and quiet as kept. They just voted on it last week to refund the program. So we just got refunded last Tuesday from the Fort Worth ISD.
All right, good. That's awesome.
Question, Rick. How do you collaborate with local schools, organizations, and community members to further reach and impact of MBK?
So Larry Kemp, I'll go with you. I'll go with some of the other organizations we work with. But Kemp and Sons, we know what he did in the community. I had a chance to meet Larry. Larry had a chance to see what our kids do. And they offer scholarships and offer opportunities for them to work with them. I don't like to use the word collaborate. I use the word co-labor because we birthing these babies together. So who do I co-labor with? I co-labor with Kemp and Son. I co-labor with Community Frontline. I'm with an organization called Community Frontline. I love working with them, Larry. I mentored every last one of them.
Whoa.
Now I'm working with them. Not one, not two. Every last one of them that's a member of that organization, except probably 3 of them, I mentored, right? And so now you have Quentin Phillips is now sitting on the school board. He'll tell you in a minute. Rickie Clark is my mentor.
Right.
Dr. Jacinto Ramos. Did you even say Dr. Jacinto Ramos?
Yes,
So now
yes.
teaching TCU. Rickie Clark is my mentor.
Right.
Right? I'm not bragging. It's a testimony.
That's good. Tell it.
Right.
Tell
So
it.
these are the kind of people that we work with so that they too become leaders. I don't work with followers. I work with leaders.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay.
I wanted to tell others. So Tarrant County Advocate Program. If you're not familiar with that, it's called TCAP, Tarrant County Advocate Program. I just left there today. We do a PATS program every Monday. PATS stands for Peaceful Alternative to Tough Situation. And my heart is the Doc Bookshop. All right? So if you all about familiar with the Doc Bookshop, it's the only black bookstore in the Metroplex. That's right. It's on Meadowbrook and Hanley, the only black store in the Metroplex. And I bet you 90-1, there are several people that's listening right now who have never been to a black bookstore. Now, you've been to Barnes and Nobles, but you've never been to a black bookstore. She said he didn't even realize there is one.
That's a neighborhood around.
Yeah, it's right there on Meadowbrook and Hanley, right there by the AutoZone in that square. Go down there to the Doc Bookshop. So I mentioned that. I mentioned Larry. I mentioned Trojan Realtor. That's my buddy Andre. They always helping us out. You need something like that. I know Shuby with the realtors.
Right.
She always there.
right.
And members of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity have always been there. So I'll stop with that.
Okay. Rick, let's talk about your books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rick, you know, it seems when anybody thinks they've gotten any traction, everybody wants to write a book, don't have nothing to say.
Right.
Okay, in my opinion. It's about the content and the intent when you write a book. So the first book I think What My Daddy Should Have Told Me.
Yes.
I read this book when it came off the presses, and it's a testament of black males going through our lives, fatherless.
Yes.
Well, no father in the home, not fatherless. No father in the home.
Us, you can be in a home and still be fatherless.
Okay. Not learning the simple lessons about sex, responsibility,
that's in
manhood,
Yeah, that's in there.
respect,
Spirituality.
hard work, spirituality,
Child support.
giving back
stopped
to
by the police.
Yeah.
It's
All
Money and
lessons.
manhood.
Money and manhood.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So I mean, if I mentioned earlier today, let me re-mention the fact that I met my father. I met my son before I met my daddy. I had a son when I was 15 years old by a girl I didn't even like her. I love her now, but I didn't even like her. I love her now. I love her, and I'll say that.
Who did you say now?
I had my son, I had a daughter. I mean, a son.
Okay.
And by a girl that I didn't like. I didn't even like her at the time we had the baby.
Okay, so you didn't like the girl that you have the baby by.
But I love her now. So I'm trying to show you how mixed-guided I was as a child.
Okay.
Having babies by people you're not even in love with. Did you hear what I said? How many other men do that?
Did y'all hear that, men out there?
And when we do that, we're destroying our children. We
Yes.
need to get bit that.
So it was
And
just a sex thing.
It was. But it's the best thing ever happened. And now we're best of friends. She live in my house right now as we speak.
Okay.
So I said that to say I wrote that book because my daddy died. So I met my son when I was 15 years old. I met my daddy when I was 16 years old. I seen my daddy 27 times before he died. And I had questions I wanted to ask my daddy. And one of the questions that I asked my daddy was, how did he feel about his daddy? He said he hated his daddy. I said, why did you hate your daddy? He said, I hated my daddy because he wasn't in my life. I said, well, how you know how I feel? I said, well, what happened when you met your daddy? He said he didn't meet his daddy until he was 21 years old. I said, what did y'all do? He said, we got drunk together. I said, drunk together? He's like, yeah, because my daddy didn't know his daddy. Right? And so now we're passing this trauma down from one generation to the next. And I made it my business that I was not going to pass that down to my children.
All right.
So I don't drink at all. So I wanted to make sure I pass that down to my children. What we have to understand is the reason why I wrote the book is because there were certain topics that I wasn't able to respond. Spirituality. What was my relationship with God? I didn't learn my relationship with God until I went to Jarvis Christian College. My education. What is education? I didn't know what that was, but now I know education is the root word is edu, which means to pull out what's in. I had already had it. I just needed help to begin to pull it out. And then my one that I just shared with you, my story, not his story. When you hear the word history, it sounds like his story. But when you hear my story, it sounds like mystery.
There you go.
You'll get that when you get home.
Yeah, I hear you.
Right.
I got you.
And then the child support. So I'm in college with college bills and child support at the same time. So when I graduated from college, I was already in debt. I was in debt going in college and debt coming out of college. Didn't know how to manage my money, didn't know what to do. My mama always threw her change behind the dresser. What you think I do with my change? Throw it behind the dresser. I just didn't know how to manage the money, right? I knew how to make it, but I didn't know how to manage it. And then what to do about stopped by the police, right? Police stopped me here in Fort Worth when I was running for city council, right? Jacked me up in front of my house. I went through all the process, went through the courts and everything like that. Nothing really happened. You see what I'm saying? But how do I address that with the kids? And I mentioned the part about money and manhood. I would ask you all, I'm asking the audience, and I do it all the time, what's a man? Then it was quiet, right?
Right.
Well, we have to define man. Man is a male that acts, thinks, and live responsible. Anytime you're not acting, thinking, and living responsible, you're just a boy masquerading as a man. So I wrote 7 essays, and I had 7 friends that write 7 essays. And in one of the essays, I have 24 questions that you can ask your daddy. Questions like, did you love my mama when I was born, right? So these are questions that you can use to have a relationship with your daddy. What questions would you ask your daddy? I'm the son of, I'm the grandson of, I'm the father of, I'm the brother of, I'm the uncle of, I'm the friend of. I didn't know my uncles, I didn't know my granddaddy on my father's side. So that's history. And what we have to learn to do is we're going to have to begin to shake the family tree. Because there's a lot of trauma inside of it that we don't even know. He says, when I was young, I loved to. What did you wish your daddy would have told you? What are 3 things you are most proud of? These are the questions you can ask your own daddy. And my favorite one is, did you love my mother when I was born? Or better yet, what time in your life did you man up? So I wrote 7 essays. I had 7 friends to write 7 essays, and I gave them 7 books to read, 7 documentaries to watch, and 7 movies to watch to talk about manhood. In order to be a man, you got to see one. So that was the first book right there. You can get this book on Amazon and where else? The Doc Bookshop. Make sure you go to the Doc Bookshop.
Then this one has an interesting time.
That's right.
Kindergarten to the 12th grade can equal 13 years a slave. So
why did I write that book?
Time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to you all that I've been running this program, My Brother's Keeper, for the district for Fort Worth ISD for the last 7 to 8 years. And so we do conferences all over the country. And everywhere I go, even in the White House, I ask this question. In the White House, can you name a book from kindergarten to 12th grade? They could not do it, right? And then I ask this question. Can you name 5 black men, I'm talking to young people, 5 black men who done something great, But Martin and Malcolm can't be one of them, and they can't play sports, and they can't be entertainers. That's right. The kids cannot name them. The adults can't even name them. So you can't lead where you don't go, and you certainly can't teach what you don't know. Right? And I found out when I started studying my history, my life changed. It brought me closer to God and had me like white people. Before then, I didn't even like white folks. I started reading my history and learning who I am and found out there's only one race of people. They just have less melanin than we do. There's only one race of people. You know what I'm saying? That's the human race. Don't you get caught up in saying that, no, the term race is a term used by psychologists to separate people.
That's right.
There's only one, and you can tell by the number of the melanin in our skin. We tend to have more melanin than light-skinned people. You got some brothers and sisters that light-skinned that may not have the same melanin. So I'm not caught up in that black and white foolishness, right? So I wrote this book right here so I can impart this liberation information to our children and to our adults. If you would ask a question, I have questions in this book. So I wrote 7 essays, had 7 friends to write an essay, and then I gave you 50 questions with the answers, 50 books, 50 documentaries, right, and 50 movies to watch and learn about your history. Well, what are some of the things that we learned? I'm glad you asked. So I began to teach and let them understand there was our ancestors that taught the world, right? So they didn't teach us. When you talk about Plato, Pythagoras, and Socrates, they don't come on the scene to 30 BC. Let me repeat that. Plato, Pythagoras, and Socrates. I got a degree in math. They told me that Pythagoras is the father of math and Euclid is the father of geometry. That's a lie. Ask me how I know.
How you know?
Because they can't build a pyramid. How you going to be the father of math and the father of geometry and you can't build a pyramid? They still can't build one today. Right? So when I learned that, I started thinking. So I wrote the book and I started sharing that information. Let me show you what some of the titles of the book is. Educate me about what? You keep telling us, educated about what? Are we free? Dumb. Not freedom, but freedom. So you're going to tell me if I'm an African-American, that means I don't know my history and I'm not respected in America. Okay. So when people ask, well, Rickie, you're African, I'm not an African-American. I'm an African born in America. Okay. If you don't love the roots, you can't love the fruit. Can I repeat that? I like that. Did integration work? No, it didn't work.
No, it did not.
The miseducation of the Negro. I didn't call it the Negro, but the miseducation of the Negro. We've been getting the same education from years to years, and we have not grown. And it says to give back or to go back, meaning that do I give back to my community or do I go back to my community? Well, they need to go back to our community so we can find something we can touch, see, and feel. And that's what I admire about Larry. With all the funds and all the things he do, he still go back into the community, walk around with the people, touching, go hire people that haven't had opportunity. So do we go back? And then ears are the only made in America. And then my last one, it was called the Equity Walk. But let me give you a few. So I would ask a question like, you ready? Simple question. Now I'm talking to the audience. What is the original name of Africa? That would be the first question. The second question, well, what is the name of the only continent that don't float on water? Is Africa a country or a continent? How many countries are inside of Africa? Anybody can help me with that one? Right. Right. Guess what? Africa have more countries than any other continent. Right? So these are the how much bigger is Africa than the United States? You can put the United States of America 3 to 4 times and still have room left. People don't know that. Name 3 natural resources, right? We always want to. Did you know what's the most precious resource in the world right now? Anybody got any idea? Anybody got any idea? Y'all ready? And everybody have it in their pocket. Y'all ready? It's coltan. That's used to make flat screens, computers. Right. The largest producer in the world is in the Congo. That's why we having fighting right now. That's why they fighting over there for that piece of rock. Yes. And that rock right there, you can't have no flat screen, you can't have no computer, you can't have nothing electronic without the coltan. And the only place you can get it right now is in the Congo. You can't go get it from nowhere else in the world. 98% of it come from Africa. So that's what he's talking about. He says, so these are the kind of questions that we ask. And then we ask the question. We always keep saying Egypt, Egypt. The original name of Egypt, you ready? No. It's called Kush. Right. The original name, and guess what? And guess what that means? Kemet. It's not Kush. It's called Kemet. And Kemet literally means land of the blacks. Okay. Well, let's talk about that. If it literally means land of the black, and you mentioned your Bible when we first came here. In the Bible, God told the angels to tell Joseph and Mary to take my son to where? He said, take my son to Egypt, didn't he? And hide him because Herod is trying to kill him. That's what the Bible says, right? Take my son to Egypt because Herod is trying to kill him. Do you think when Jesus got to Egypt, he saw the pyramids? I'm asking a question. Yeah, he saw the pyramid because it was there. Because in the Bible, he said it, well, matter yet, where did they leave Jesus? After 13, what was he left? Inside the temple. He didn't say the church, he said the temple. Right? And didn't see him again until he was 30. And his ministry only lasted 3 years. Right? Well, all of the information, you get it from there. If I would ask the audience right now where the Bible come from, what would you say? They was like, oh, it came from God. Well, God didn't do no writing. Right? So who wrote it? Where did that come from? Everybody knows, well, you should know, it comes from pyramid text and coffin text. Ask me what I mean by that. Okay. I'm glad you asked. Pyramid text meaning that it was written on the pyramid walls. Right. Coffin text means that it was inside the scrolls, inside the sarcophagus. That's where the Bible come from. Yeah. So listen to what I'm saying. We the one offered this to the world. The world didn't offer it to us. We taught the world didn't teach us. This brother over here saying, yes, and I forgot to tell you, everything I say, Google it. You can pull it up. Don't go by what I say. So when you go inside this book, I start teaching them liberated information, right? So I would ask the question, who knows the first doctor? The first noted doctor is Imhotep. The first doctor, first mathematician, the first multi-genius, and the designer of the step pyramid. Even right now, today, if you want to be a doctor or a nurse, you have to say an oath to Imhotep. It's called the Hippocratic Oath, and it says, Asquetu Asclepius, the god of medicine. Am I right? Well, guess who? Asclepius is Imhotep. That's who that is. His name is Imhotep. They just call him Asclepius. So he the one, you ever seen this thing called a stethoscope? He invented the stethoscope. You ever heard of shears? He invented the shears. You ever heard of prescription? He wrote the first prescriptions. And he did the first brain surgery. Somebody asked me, how do I know and prove it? Come on.
How do you know and prove it?
I'm glad. Because we have mummies.
Yes.
And when you have a mummy, you have to take out all the vital parts of the mummy. Even the brain, and you take the brain through the nose and you put them in jars. The only thing you don't take out is the heart. And that's why when you see that thing and it's like this, that scale, that's taken from us. That's a scale of justice. It's called Mayat. And in Mayat, they said your heart must be lighter than a feather. That's how we measure it, whether you go to the next realm or not. They put a feather on here, and if your heart is not heavier than a feather, is not lighter than the feather, then you don't go to the next realm. So these are the things that we've learned in here. And when you start teaching people that and realize that we taught the world didn't teach us, you hear this thing, y'all call it the Sphinx. That's not called a Sphinx. That's called a Hermakin. A Sphinx have wings. The Hermakin don't have no wings. It's the head of a man and the body of a lion. Consists of the 4 parts, man, beast, brain, and body. You follow what I'm saying? There's a riddle to the Sphinx. What walks on 4 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening? It's a man. On 4, we're a baby crawling on all 4. On 2, we're a young man, and on 3, we're an old man with a cane. These are information that we taught the world. So when I begin to do this, y'all see I'm excited about it. So you got to calm me down when we talk about this. But if you think about that, he said that, how is it that Plato, Pythagorean, Socrates, Aristotle, but they don't come on the scene till 30 BC. So by the time they get there, the pyramids are already there, the alphabets are already, the numbers are already there, and then they say that Alexander the Great. Well, what made Alexander the Great? Huh? He wasn't great. Alexander couldn't read and could not write. They say, well, he built the first library. No, he didn't. He built the first library where they buried the lies. He couldn't have built the first library. Because where did he get the books from?
Come on.
Right? And then they say, well, they burnt the library of Alexander. Well, then where's all this new information come from? Well, in the Vatican, you seeing all kind of stuff right there in the Vatican. In Washington, D.C., they had this thing called, y'all call it the Washington Monument. It's not a Washington Monument. That's called an obelisk. Okay. They stole that from Africa. It's really a tekken. It's really a symbol of a phallic symbol. And it's right there in Washington, D.C. And in Washington, D.C., right now today, you cannot build a building taller than the Washington Monument.
Why is that, Rick?
Because they know that when they built that, if you go and look at it, they're using the same plateau of the Egyptian layout, right? And they say they put that in there so that it can bring all the power to D.C. All that stuff, go look at the back of your dollar bill. Well, all those symbols are borrowed from Africa. You know, y'all call it the Middle East, but that's not the Middle East. They say Egypt in the Middle East. Egypt can't be in the Middle East because if it's in the Middle East, where's the Middle West? Where's the Middle North? Where's the Middle South? Egypt is in Africa. You can't take a country out of a continent and call it the Middle East. They do that because you don't want to give credit to people of African descent. That's why I share that information. I'm excited about it, and I want people to know, and I'm not going to stop talking about it because we need to know. Any other questions?
Okay, Rick, what challenge have you faced while running the program, and how have you overcome them?
So the challenge is, oftentimes you'll find people who don't understand what it is we're trying to do, and then they'll come and attack the program, right? We want to end funding. So recently, and again, I thank you all for supporting it. We just got our funding, but there were people called Fort Worth Watchdog, and they were making comments about the work that we're doing in the community, not understanding what we do from an African-centric perspective, right? So when we're telling the kids they have a chant, it's really not even a chant, it's a call. When you join a fraternity, one thing you have to do in a fraternity, you have to know the history of the fraternity.
Right.
In our fraternity, we have 7 founders. We have to know all 7 founders, their names, first and last name, right? And put them in alphabetical order. And we will call their names out, right? So when we in MBK, the founder of My Brother's Keeper is Barack Obama. So whether you like Barack or not, he was the founder of it, so we have to give him credit. So they saying, well, you keep making the kids say Barack Obama. We gonna keep saying Barack Obama because Barack Obama started the MBK program, right? So that's one of the things that I run up against constantly, right? And another thing that I run up against, you see me talking, right? And you don't hear me whispering. When you do that, they will come for you. I'll stop right there.
Okay. How do you ensure that the MBK program remains sustainable and continues to make positive difference in the lives of young men of color in our community?
Because we're making boys to men. And what we do at MBK, I mentioned earlier before, we don't have followers. We have leaders. So I have a group of leaders. When we meet in a circle because we all leaders. When we go in there and try to talk to our kids, we realize that we're not the experts on you. Everybody in this world is an expert on themselves. Right? So we go in there and we teach leadership, and by teaching leadership, leaders create leaders. So we're making sure that the program continues to go on, and I want to pause here and tell you, it's not a program, it's a movement. So it's not a program, this is a movement, and this movement will continue to grow, and we're looking forward to spread it out to other areas, other school districts that would love to have us.
Let me see. Talk about the growth of MBK locally. How many schools did you start out with?
Right.
I know you weren't in every school at first.
Right.
I know you're at my alma mater, Everman, now.
So we did Everman as well. So we started off with about, it was like $35,000 trying to work with all these kids. It was just me and then another guy named Kevin. And then me and Kevin worked for a while. It was actually Kevin running the program, and then Kevin left. And when he left, we was able to take it to another level. Right now, we're in all 17 high schools. We once had the contract with Magic Johnson, and we had the middle schools and the high schools right before COVID. Okay. So before COVID came, we had middle schools and high schools. So we started off with, like you said, like 8 schools. Now we're in 16 schools, and out of the 16 schools, we have 10 MSK and MBK programs. And the sad part about it, we doing with the exact same funding that I had before. Didn't ask for more money, just brought on more services.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, ask 2, 3 questions.
Okay, so when you going into these schools, is this set up as a class, or you just going in as a workshop person? Are these actually classes?
So some schools we use them as classes, and some of them we don't. Okay. So what we have the rights is we get to meet with the kids on a weekly basis. Normally we meet with them at their lunch break. Okay. Right? And we feed them. We take them pizza, chicken. We feed them at their lunch break every time. And we go in there doing lunch. Now you take a kid's lunch, you better be doing something.
I know it.
Right.
That's true.
So they come in there doing their lunchtime and impart this information. So in most of the schools are at lunch, but I had 3 schools, and they're gonna be jealous when I say it, but actually 2. That's Southwest and Dunbar. Now we do Southwest and Dunbar at 10:30. 10:30 on Wednesdays and 10:30s on Thursdays. And that is an actual class. So the boys come in at 10:30, from 10:30 to 11:30, and then the girls come in from 11:30 to 12:30.
So is it all races? Or
all races. We deal with everybody.
All races can come in there and hear about the black history?
Oh, we don't just do black history.
You do what?
African history. Okay. We don't use the word black. We use African history, Mexican, Latino history, and we get the European history every day.
So you go into these schools.
Yes.
And you get permission to go into the school.
Yes.
And they allow you to come in there.
Yes.
And talk about all the history.
So we ain't there just talking about history. We run a mentoring program.
Okay, so y'all talk
and
what else do you all talk
I'm glad
about?
you asked. We talk about violence prevention.
Okay.
Right? Entrepreneurship. He'll tell you, those kids are coming and tell you, and he'll tell you this too. That's why like Rickie's the best teacher there is. Everything I've said to you, We teach our children in a style called call and response.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you the information. You just got to give it back to me verbatim, word for word.
Okay.
For an example, we teach them entrepreneurship.
Okay.
So if you would ask one of our kids, what's an entrepreneur? They will respond this way. An entrepreneur is a person who takes the risk of owning and operating his or her own business.
Okay.
What makes a successful entrepreneur? Buy low, sell high, and keep good records.
Okay.
How many parts to a business? 4. What are the 4 parts? Manufacture, wholesale, retail, and service. What do the manufacturer do? Makes the parts. Who he sell it to? The wholesaler. Who the wholesaler sell it to? The retailer. Who the retailer sell it to? The consumers. Who's the more consumer in the world? Young black people. Why? Because we not manufacturing anything. This is how our children, just like I'm talking to you, that's how they talk to you. We talk about violence prevention. So we use a curriculum called VIP, Violence Intervention and Prevention Program.
Okay.
You can ask them questions about that. We don't have rules.
Okay.
We have agreements. We have 13 agreements.
Okay.
The first agreement is confidentiality. The second agreement is punctuality. You can walk into my classroom and say number 7 and raise your hand, because number 7 is respect. It'll be quiet enough you can hear a pin drop on cotton. Number 6 is feeling. Get in touch with your feelings. So we don't say to the kid, shut up, be quiet. We just say, man, get in touch with your feelings. We talk about trauma. So the new book I'm working on right now is called Shaking the Family Tree. We talk about trauma. Most of our kids are dealing with trauma. This ain't about just African history.
That's good.
So when we go in there with the kids, we got to work with them whole, right? That's just a part of it. Because if you don't know who you are, then can't nobody help you. So you got to love yourself before you can do anything else. Well, how do you love something you don't know nothing about? So that's why we impart that information. But you got, I'm a certified trader, right? You might have heard of NEFI. NEFI stands for the National Foundation for Teaching and Training Entrepreneurs. I've sold toilet paper. Do you hear me? We taught our kids how to sell toilet paper. He'll tell you with D. Jennings, we had toilet paper, wrapped it in black paper, stuck a quote in it. The quote says, we're not poor. We spend our money poorly. We need to teach our dollar some sense. Did you hear that? Everything I'm telling you, and next time invite me and let me bring one of the kids on here. And everything I'm saying to you, they will give it to you verbatim, word for word. So everything we teach is word for word. They can't add a word to it. You can't take a word out of it. You need to know it. So I talked about, and so we deal with a couple of things. We deal with violence prevention, youth entrepreneurship, right? African history, Mexican and Latino history, right? Male socialization, female socialization. These are the things that we deal with. So if I would ask you what's a man or what's a woman, you have to define that, right? And then we also talk about trauma, right? Y'all are familiar with ACE. ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Experience. They take a test to find out where they are on the ACE. Realize that everybody deals with trauma. We talk about the trauma openly, right? So we're not, you hear people talk about they want a safe space. We don't have safe spaces. We have brave spaces. Because when you talk about this trauma, you have to be brave. Instead of asking our children what's wrong, we don't ask them what's wrong with them. We ask them what happened to them.
What happened to him?
Yeah, you don't ask them what's wrong. When you see a kid with a monitor on his leg, it's not what's wrong with the kid, it's what happened to the kid. When you see them depressed and doing the things that they doing, being violent, being disruptive, there's nothing wrong with the kid. The question is, what happened to the kids? But we the first one to say, what's wrong with you? Something wrong with him. He about to lose his mind. Hey, somebody take him up. But nobody ever stopped to top the question, what happened to him? So there's other books that we turn them on too. So one of the books is called What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry. And then from that book, we don't study books, we research them. So after we read What Happened to You, the next book is It Didn't Start With You. And the reason why we do It Didn't Start With You, because we have to understand that trauma is being passed down from generation to generation. We always talk about DNA, Larry. When you talk about DNA is only 2% that most of us would speak of. I mean, I look like my daddy, sit like my daddy, and talk like my daddy, but you didn't talk about the violence, you didn't talk about the depression, you'll talk about the anxiety that you had, and what we don't realize is that it's being passed down from generation. There's a term I want y'all to hear, it's called epigenetics. And epigenetics talk about how we pass these genes down 5 generations. Not 1, 5 generations. In our community, we used to call it, you have a curse, a generational curse. That ain't no generational curse. That's trauma being passed down from one generation to the next. And if you don't address that trauma, then you pass it on to your son, your daughters, and things like that. So what happened to you, it didn't start with you. And then the other book is called The Body Keeps Count. The body keeps score, I'm sorry. And what I mean by that is things are happening to our bodies. And it ain't your mind, it's your body. And your body will protect itself even if the mind don't. So sometimes that's why people still strung out on drugs. They trying to get regulated, right? But I would ask the question, what did we do before we had drugs, counselors, and therapists? You know what we did? We sat like this, and we talked to each other.
That's right.
We're not doing enough talking to each other, right? And we're not telling the truth. And then we in our households, you know darn well that granddaddy or your uncle or your sister that did something to Susie Ann and ain't nobody talking about
Come
it.
on.
So now we're sitting there having Thanksgiving dinner and everybody caught up in the trauma and not knowing it. Even though he didn't rape me, it affect everybody in the house.
That's right.
Everybody in the house, even the one that didn't get touched.
That's right.
You follow what I'm saying? But
Yes,
ain't nobody
yes.
talking about it. But we
Yes.
want to sweep it under the rug. And instead of coming into the
Yeah.
house and asking about the elephant in the front room, we talking about the pile of dirt that's under the rug. And don't nobody want to address
Talk
it.
about it.
We'll
That's
address the elephant, but we won't address what's under that rug.
That's right.
But here's what we say, and you know it all the time, and I can say it right now. And most of our households, we've been taught what happens in here, what?
Stays in
Oh,
here.
you weren't even in my house.
Thank you.
You hear what I'm saying? Everybody can respond to that, but I want to leave you with this. It's the secrets in our house that's killing us.
That's right. I like that.
It's the secrets in our house that's killing us. We're not talking about those traumas, right? So these kids I'm working with, they dealing with things like that, and we talk about it. I don't ask them what their trauma was, but I ask them how they dealt with it. When you had your trauma, there's only three things can happen with trauma. You either fight, flight, or freeze. And whatever you did and you didn't deal with that trauma, if you fought, you still fight. If you fled, you still running. If you froze, you still froze until you begin to deal with that. And we don't even realize, let me give you a short one, I'll be done. One of the kids, we talking about trauma. And he said, well, Mr. Rickie, I hope you listen. I'm not calling any names.
Right.
He said that one day they was on their way to Oklahoma. They go on a trip every year to Oklahoma. This is not a bad kid. He don't get in trouble, none of that kind of stuff. He's on their way to Oklahoma, Larry. And on their way to Oklahoma, they seen this car going in and out. And as the car, from behind, it get closer to them, hit the bank, flipped over their car, and landed on another car, and crushed the people that was in there. And they seen it. I ain't gonna cry, but they seen it. And now they keep on going, and when they get to the hotel, they hears about the accident, and everybody died. But didn't nobody talk about it. They didn't get no counseling, they didn't get no therapy, they didn't get
Kept it
nothing.
in.
Because we just saw this, he saw it.
Right.
But now you gotta go back to school.
Like nothing happened.
When I'm talking about that incident, what's happening in our houses that we got to go back to school? Like what? Like nothing happened. Y'all have to understand, our kids are going through a lot of stuff. They're dealing with stuff that we never had to deal with.
That's true.
Right? It is more rampant now than ever before with the internet and all that kind of stuff, and they don't know how to deal with it.
That's right.
So there's a lot of triggers that's going off, and we don't realize it, and we put them in these juvenile institutions, put them in
on
jails,
drugs.
put them on drugs. Well, when
That's
you
right.
start them with that Ritalin at a young age, do you know that if you
Thank
give
you.
those kids Ritalin at a young age,
That's right.
when they become adult, they still need medicine.
That's right. And
They
they're gonna
still
give
need
it to their kids.
They gonna
too.
give it to their
That's
kids,
right.
and they gonna find a way to get it. And the reason we doing this, y'all, is because of the trauma. Until we address the trauma, this will continue to happen, right?
That's
I'm
true.
begging you. There was this one young man. He kept stabbing folks, and they couldn't understand why he kept stabbing them with a pencil. Then he got to high school. He's still doing. That boy went to counseling. The counseling didn't help. He went to a therapist, right? Because he tried to stab somebody. Come to find out, the therapist told him, "Anybody in your family ever did this?" He said, "No." He said, "Well, go home and shake the family tree." He goes home and shake the family tree. Come to find out that his granddaddy stabbed a man in Oklahoma and killed him
Come on.
in self-defense. But it depressed him. He became an alcoholic. He became depressed. He had to find his way back to God. All of that. Well, guess what? When he was dealing with all that, he had a baby. And whatever he was dealing with,
It went
he
to-
passed it.
That's right.
Y'all hear me?
I hear you.
Young lady, 35 years old, finna divorce her husband. They sitting at the table at 35. She says to her husband across the table, "I'm done with this. Everything is over with." She got kids, got a career. He's like, "What is wrong? What are you talking about? This is over with." This is in the book. After they went back and forth, the lady went and seen the therapist. Come to find out, y'all ready for this? At age 35, her grandmother and her great-grandmother departed from their husbands. Never married again at 35. She went through the same emotions, had to go see the therapist, and had to go back to her husband and apologize and beg him to come back to the house. We got to realize what we dealing with,
Right.
right? Learn what you dealing with and stop it, because if you don't, you will pass it to your children. So there is a way to correct this trauma. So I said, what happened to you, it didn't start with you. The body keeps score, and I want you to close with, you ready? In My Grandmother's Hands. There's another book that talks about trauma for black, white and police officers, and how to deal with it. So let me share that with you. I'm glad you brought me. In that book, it talks about the trauma that we deal with. It says ways to deal with it. Black men, men in general, we need to have massages. We need to go have our feet done, pedicures, manicures. We got to get this, because you're dealing with all this trauma. How do you release it?
Come on.
How do we release our trauma? That's why you women want to go get their hair done. They need somebody in their hair, putting their hands through their hair, or getting their feet done, or getting their massage, because it relieves the stress and the trauma that we've been dealing with. How do we relieve the trauma? You're a police officer, but you're a black officer, and you're locking up another black person. That's traumatic.
Yes.
Well, you're a white officer, you locking up somebody black that didn't deserve to be black, and you know you did that. That's trauma, right? You're a woman, and you do it. So we dealing with all this, but no ways of dealing with it. He said, so we need to play drums. One of the things that I do, I have African drums. Y'all should come to the Doc Bookshop. We do it once a month. Play the drums. That's how you release stress. Golf. You know I'm an avid golfer.
Avid golfer.
And get in some water.
I love the water.
Let me tell y'all, my mama, my daddy, my grandmama, my grandmother, and both my brothers have passed. And I talk to them every day. I have plants in my house, and every one of the plants got a name. That's Winnie, that's Flip, that's Daddy, that's Mama, and when I water them, I'm talking to them. What's the one thing that don't go away? Water. So you talk to them in the spirit.
Okay, Rick, looking ahead, what are your future plans and aspirations, not only for MBK program, but for you, and how do you envision its growth and development in the coming years? I know you're always been a political activist from the sidelines.
Well, I'm going to stay there. Y'all do know that my sister's running for president. I'm an alpha. She's an AKA, so I can say that.
Yes, yes.
All right, so I can say I'm voting for my sister, and I got a T-shirt from my son that says I'm voting for my auntie, right?
I like
So
that.
I want people to be more political. Well, I mean, we live in a democracy, right? And if you live in a democracy, you want to get involved into the political process, whether you want to or not, right? And they always say that the majority wins, so I want to try to encourage young people between the age of 18 and 30 to get involved in the political process. We're ready to take MBK now on the road. So we're going into the Everman, looking at Crowley, looking at some local schools. And then the other thing that we're doing is now I'm doing those trainings, violence prevention trainings, and youth entrepreneur trainings. So not only will I just do it here, we will take it to some of those rural areas like Hawkins, Texas, Tyler, Texas, the little bitty places that need that help too, right? Taylor, Texas, like going to close to Austin, places like that. And to try to go and make some more Rickies, right? So I want to make some more little Rickies, and not to follow Ricky, not to follow Ricky, but little Rickies to be themselves and do what it is that they need to do to empower them. So that's one of the things we're trying to do with MBK, is to try to empower our young folks to own and operate their own business.
Thank you so
Rick,
much.
you know, you and I have been close for the last 20 years, I guess.
Yeah.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and what you do every day in this community. So what do you see for Rickie Clark, personally? Not MBK.
I knew he was going to say, he always say that.
you
Rick,
know,
why you doing for you? What you doing for you?
yeah.
It's been said that your passion leads you to your purpose.
Uh-huh.
And my passion is uplifting people. I think I'll be doing this for the rest of my life. I would probably never retire. That's what I see for myself, but I also see myself continuing to, like I told you, I'm about to write another book. I'm excited about that. And just continue to give, Larry. You know, I'm 36 in the mirror right now. And I just want to continue to serve, man.
Yeah.
It fuels me, honestly, it do. You know, I probably could have a whole lot of money doing something else, but I wouldn't be happy. I'm like happy doing this. I just love
can see it.
getting up, doing this. I
can
love
feel
my people.
I think the thing about this most foremost to me about Rickie is watching the lives he changes.
That's good.
He, you know, when he sent those boys off to Jarvis that year and they didn't have nothing. When he said they didn't have anything, I didn't exactly know what he meant, but he meant nothing.
Nothing.
And to know now they've been out of college 2 or 3 years and
Jobs. No, I'm sorry. Our kids don't get jobs. They got careers. Ask me why they don't get jobs. Because the job stands for just over broke or just on bills. So we don't teach our kids about getting no job.
This is good.
We teach them to get a career. You either live your dream or somebody will pay you to live theirs.
That's good.
That's what we teach them. So yeah, they got careers. Right. We do not encourage anybody from MBK or MSK to get a job. We do encourage them to get a career, and we tell them I can work with you, but I don't work for you.
I like that. And we know the time is gonna be.
This is business.
This is awesome.
We got to stop, right?
We gotta stop, but we're gonna have to have you to come back.
Okay.
This is awesome. I'm just sitting here, I'm just so, bedazzled. I'm just I feel like I'm on high right now.
To God be the glory.
I tell you, I feel like I'm up there, you know. I didn't know, looking at this, man. It was so funny how we met there.
Right.
We was over at the blank space and Quentin, because I've been knowing Quentin from all the other meetings.
Yeah.
And Quentin said, you need to have this guy on the show. And I said, well, what is this guy's name? And he said, Rickie.
Right.
I said, who? Rickie who?
Yeah. He said Rickie Clark.
And I said, who? He said, Rickie Clark. I said, Larry already have him coming on the show.
Yeah. Right.
And he said, Larry been talking about coming on this show.
Yeah.
I said, that's the show. That's my show.
Right. He had been
Yeah.
excited about it. And he came and told me.
You know, it was initially centered around business, so but it's really about what's going on in the community.
Right.
He told me that too. He said, Rick, this is about, but I need you because you doing the business.
That's
so
right.
if
That's what he wanted.
I'm going to leave y'all. Can I leave you with a poem?
Yeah.
You mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
And this poem, and I've said it before, this is a poem by M.K. Asante. It'll wrap up what we're talking about. Is that okay?
Good. That's good.
And this is by M.K. Asante, and I quote. He says, sometimes I feel like I'm above the ground and the ceiling, in institutions that disengage in healing. Instead, open warp wombs trap me in a room, consumed with hypocrisy. But it occurred to me that Greek philosophers didn't author their own philosophy. The statues on campus be watching me. Washington, Jefferson, Williams clocking it to say, Negro, your time is up. But I don't run laps around tracks. I run laps around scholars of tomorrow, because new school of thought is merely our history borrowed. They label me militant, black national radical, trying to put my learning process on a sabbatical. But I don't apologize, because the truth to the whites of their eyes infected by white lies. They even try to get me to see their point of view by a brother that looks like me. That brother don't walk like me, talk like me, or act like me. He even turned his head and ran when I asked if he was black like me. Memorizing their thoughts and forgetting our own, and wonder why we always feel alone. From the media to academia, hanging our brothers like coats. And in their schools, always take 2 sets of notes. One set to ace the test, and one set to know the truth. And when I find the historical contradictions, I use the first set as proof. Proof that our youth minds are being polluted, convoluted, diluted, not culturally rooted in anything except Western massacre. Most of us are scared of Africa. We view our mother's land through the eyes of David Ham and Emmanuel Can. But Emmanuel can't tell me about a land he never seen. A land rich with history, beautiful kings and queens. But they'll have you to believe otherwise. The history is built off high-rise lies. The pyramids were complete before Rome or Greece were conceptualized. And then they'll claim that the Egyptian race is a mystery. You tell them, read, he wrote his book too. It's their history. It can't get any clearer. Young people, look in the mirror. We are the reflection of divinity. Don't be fooled by selective memory. Walk high and listen to the elders who spoke. Young people always take 2 sets of notes. Thank you.
What a way to end this show. I hope you all have enjoyed this. This is our first time with Talk Business with Larry. Thank you, Larry. I think you did good.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're part of the show.
Yeah. Oh man, it's been a blessing to me.
Yes.
I'm excited about it. Excited about the people.
Yes.
Everybody I've talked to. There's a whole range of people. Not only people giving back to the community, but people making awesome business decisions every day. A gangbanger who has 3 businesses today. A lady that feeds the homeless every Sunday. So those are people I'm bringing in.
And we love that, because this is the Talk of Life Talk Show with Elma, Dr. Larry Kemp. Every first Monday we're going to have this segment on the show, so you all need to tune in every Monday and Thursday, Facebook or YouTube, 8 p.m. Thank you, Rickie Clark. I'm still on a high, man. I'm still trying to, because, you know, bring all this in. Oh, wow. I'm going to have to go back and learn something.
All right.
I need to know this.
We'll love to impart it.
I tell you, we're going to have to get him back on the show, Larry, please.
No problem.
All right. Thank you all again. We miss you all, Linda, Kim, Jerome. Thank you all. Thank you, Rickie, again for being on the show. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Rickie.
Well, I got to end this
Larry.
with this one. I asked Larry, I said, Larry, you need to come and be on the show. oh, I don't know if I can do every Monday. I said, well, Larry, you can do one Monday, can't you?
Right.
So he drops in every now and then.
Okay.
And be with us. But I'm glad that he decided to do this every first Monday. We will have Talk Business, what's going on in the community with the one and only Dr. Larry Kemp. Thank you all. May God bless you and keep you until what? We see you face to face. May God bless you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Larry. I lost my keys in